So for step 19, assembling the rear dampers. Well, you can see there's quite a few pieces for this. And then we've got our BC13, and of course we need to make 2. Now there are all the parts we need. But notice there's a color difference between these 2 springs. And doesn't really say which one's which here. But I'll show you also how to determine which ones are for the rear and which ones are for the front. So I'll set this up and we'll put it together. So let's start with this one. So we're going to grab our C15 piece, and you can see that there's one hole and it's open on one end, and then it's just the hole on this end. So that's the part we want. Then we're going to grab our cylinder, and you can see that that is going to fit where that hole is there. That's going to slide in like that. And that means we're going to grab our C7 piece, which this piece in the middle is going to slide over and into. Now what you're going to find is on that piece itself, you want this sort of flat ridged area on the flat side to be facing down, because that's what the spring is going to sit on. And you can see there's also a ring. So I'm going to grab the plastic ring C5 and slide it over top. Now they're showing you putting the spring on. Notice which spring I'm putting on, and I'll show you why in a moment. So then once you've got this, you need to slide this in, turn 90 degrees, and out. And there is one of our springs. So there's one of our rear shocks. Interesting. And I mean, these are just pogo sticks, as they commonly call them, because they're not going to offer a tremendous amount of dampening. But here's what I mean by the difference. Notice that this spring is very thin, whereas the rings on this are a lot thicker. So this is providing a lot stiffer suspension. So because all the weight is in the back, you want the stiffer suspension in the back and the lighter suspension in the front. Now, how do I know this? Well, this is where it got interesting, is that if you look at that picture, it just looks like a spring, right? Well, if you look at the spring that is required in step 21, notice there's a color difference. That's just sort of the white and gray as usual, whereas that is a darker color, just like how they show you the darker screws versus the regular screws. So that is how you know that these springs are designed for the rear suspension. Okay, so knowing that, let's do this all over again. We're going to grab this piece. We're going to grab our cylinder, put that over top just like that. We're going to grab this piece, and again, remember, we've got a flat side. That's going to face that way towards the spring. We've got this ring C5, and then we've got our spring, and then we have this piece here, which you push in, and then you turn 90 degrees, and there we go. So there are our 2 rear shocks. So step 19 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 20 and attach the rear dampers. So for step 20, attaching the rear dampers, well, we're basically just going to grab the dampers we built in the last step and put them on. And it's showing that there's really only 4 screws, except we have this little B8 piece that needs to go on the bottom. Now what's interesting is, which you don't see this in a lot of instructions, it's literally saying attach the rear damper to lower arm first. Often, we end up deciding which one to do ourselves. Not sure why that's there, but we'll see. So in terms of hardware, there's just these 4 step screws, and there are our 2 finished shocks and the 2 little B8 pieces. So I'll set this up and we'll put these on. So if we grab our chassis, let's grab one of our dampers and one of the little black pieces that they want you to use, and you'll notice that they want the step screw to go through the bottom of this, and not much different, through the bottom of the damper. It's then going to go through one of the little black B8 pieces and then to the inside of the lower arm, which means it's got to go down here. Now it's kind of interesting that they've done it this way because there's not really a lot of room to play with here to actually attach them, but there must be a reason why they did it that way. So I'm going to try and see what I can do in terms of getting this on. Now it's obviously going to be a little awkward. Not sure why they did it this way. Maybe I'll just put it like that for a second if I can get the screwdriver. Yes. Okay. Well, it's an interesting. It is a little awkward getting those on because there's not a lot of room. Now, the one thing that I would say is you've got to remember you're going into soft plastic here. So when you're screwing this in, once you get to the end and it's almost all the way in, stop. Otherwise, you'll end up stripping this out. So as soon as you feel a little bit of resistance, stop. And that is the end. So you can see how that is attached. So if we flip this over, you can see now that we're going to need the other step screw. It's going to go through the shock tower or the shock top and go into the very end hole of the damper stay that we put on. So you can see that there are 3 holes in the damper stay itself. We're going to attach this to the very end. And I think if I hold it this way, this will be the easiest way to put this on. Actually, let's see. It's not quite level, so let me do it this way. There. And I'll see how far I can go with this, because it's obvious it can go in a fair ways. And that's going into hard plastic, so when you get to the end you'll know, because you can't really turn it anymore. So there we go. There is our one of our rear dampers in place. Very cool. So again, let's do the other side now. So again, we need to put a step screw through the bottom, put this B8 piece on the other side of it, and this is going to fit on this way. I'll try and hold that in place while I grab the screwdriver. Make sure that's going in correctly. Yes. Okay. Now, just making sure that there's still room to screw that in without over tightening. Yep, I'll do one last turn. Yep, but that is now on. So we're left with the last step, which is put the step screw through the back end, put it in this end hole on the damper stay. Again, I'll make sure that's going in level, which it is. You can see that it's going in nice and level. So we'll continue to screw that on. And again, if you can see where the screw threads are, I I only want to go to the end. So let's make sure that I can get, I'll use my other hand because it's getting in the way here. So let's do it this way. There we go. And it's possible this one can go in just a bit more as well. Which it can. So there we go. There are our rear shocks in place. It's interesting because I've not seen a kit where the shocks are actually quite different in color. Whether it's front or back. They're usually the same springs or same color, slightly different in length. But these are obviously very different springs because one has wider coils or larger coils than the front. Well, very cool. So that means step 20 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 21 and assemble the front dampers.